So what I'm saying is that this was a good strategy in order to ensure that his genes would be continue. It keeps the, he shares genes with the Jewish people. If is his death preserved them, like the death of the sacrificial lamb in Egypt, and therefore his genes were preserved because he shares genes with the Jewish people, but also he shares genes with all people, and so he also helped out all people in a sense, but especially the Jewish people. Now I want to say too that, so my thesis was that Jews are described in the Bible more as NTs, Gentiles more as SJs, and so what I wanted to say was, people ask, or you say, well, I described how when Jesus seems to be talking against the Jewish people, he actually is complimenting them. When he's calling them disobedient, why won't you guys believe in me? He's describing them more as NTs and not SJs. He says, yeah, and really he continued. He doesn't. It doesn't. So what I described is that it's kind of the opposite of what a lot of Christians think. Now you may ask, well, is there any precedence in the Bible of a Jew pretending to be against the Jews in order to and deceiving the Gentiles in doing so? Yes, there is a precedence in this. If you look at King David was being chased by Saul. Saul was jealous of King David, and Saul wanted him killed. So David's on the run, and then he I think the king was a Philistine, but we'll just say that he was a Gentile king. And then David is taken up into his house, and he tells the king that the King Saul is chasing him, and now he does not like the Jewish people, and he wants the Jewish people killed. David's saying that he doesn't like the Jewish people anymore. He wants to kill the Jewish people. And then this Gentile king is like, yeah, David, you're the man. I hate the Jews too. We both hate the Jews. They're buddies now. I'm paraphrasing, but now they're buddies. And the Gentile king loves David because he thinks that David hates the Jews, and they both share this in common. They both belong. They both have the same belief that they don't like the Jews. So the Gentile king thinks. So David says to the king that whenever he leaves he first asks the king, can I stay with you, and can you feed me, so forth? Can you feed my army? And the king's like, yeah, stay with us. That's good. That's cool. So he stays with them, and he tells the king every night or every time before he leaves that he's going out to kill the Jews. He's going out to kill Jews. But every time David leaves, he kills Gentiles. I think it was the Philistines, but let's just say it's the Philistines. He goes every time he goes out, he kills the Philistines, and he doesn't kill Jews. So here he is pretending to be against the Jews, but really, in fact, he is not. So this is some precedence of that, of pretending to be against the Jews, a Jewish person pretending to be against the Jews, but really not being against the Jews. And in fact, David was not a fan of the Gentiles, and he kills a lot of Gentiles. So then you look at the New Testament, and you say, okay, Paul, originally he was killing Christians, and he was killing Gentiles. Or one thing I want to say though too is, remember at the end of John it says that it's tacked on to the very end, and Jesus, before the command was do not talk to Gentiles, only came for Jesus' command was do not preach to the Gentiles, only preach to the children of Israel. At the very end it's tacked on, and at the very end of the gospel it's tacked on, and make disciples of all nations. Once again, it doesn't necessarily say make disciples who are Gentiles. He could still be referring to make disciples who are Israelites of all nations. And this was a question at the time. And at first, a lot of Jews thought that only Jews could become Christians. But putting that aside, Paul is prosecuting Christians at first, and he's killing them. But then he has a conversion experience, he claims, where he sees a light, and then he decides to start to convert the Gentiles, and he starts to try to convert. He starts to try to convert Gentiles to Christianity. And so this is what he does. He goes around and he's preaching to the Gentiles, and he's telling them to not become Jews. He's telling them that the Jewish religion is not, it has a lot of flaws. And he's telling the Gentiles, just convert to this Christianity. You don't have to follow the rules of Judaism. And he's trying to convert a lot of Gentile people to Christianity. And so like I said, he pretends to be against the Jews, though, or this is how he talks. He talks like he's against the Jews, and he says, in Christ there is no Jew or Gentile, Greek or male or female. So he seems like he's for everybody, but he's telling the Gentiles, do not convert to Judaism. But you can convert to Christianity. But while this is going on, keep in mind, Paul continues to be a Jew. He continues to go to the synagogue. He continues to practice Judaism. And also all the people who are with Paul, all the fellow Jews who are preaching Jesus' word, they continue to go to the synagogue. They continue to practice Jewish customs. So while they're telling the Gentiles, do not convert to Judaism, stick to Christianity, they themselves are still practicing Jews. So the question is this the same thing that Jonah was doing? Is this the same thing the converting the Gentiles to Christianity, or which is a sect of Judaism, in order to, in the end goal, probably to help the Jews out, because like as the saying goes, love your enemies. Some people say keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. So the Jews throughout history saw Gentiles as their enemies. So Paul's revelation is, he was fighting, he was killing the Gentiles, but then he says, you know what? Convert the Gentiles to a sect of Judaism. And that's what he did. And in the end, Christianity and Islam has helped throughout history the Jews survive. And has, if it wasn't for those religions and the other Abrahamic religions, the Jews would not be in Israel. So this is a theory, and it can be explained even more. It's pretty well backed up. So hopefully continue more in a minute.